In the beginnings of an observational drawing, it's best to have a pencil and a ruler, and I like to have an eraser too. I know some people think it's better to work without, but I'm not going to tell you guys to work without one because I don't like to work without one. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create basic shapes, and those shapes are meant to help us get the proportions of our objects right, and so that's why the ruler plays a big part. So what I'm doing here is I'm holding up the ruler in front of my penguin. Now, granted, I'm putting it really closely to the penguin. That's more for the purposes of this video so that you can see what I'm doing. You don't always have to be that close to your object. It's just so that you could see the object that I'm drawing and what I'm doing at the same time. So what I just did there is I held up the ruler and I measured two of the basic parts of the penguin, his body and his head. Here's why we do this. So if I measure and the body is about 8 inches tall and the head's only about 2 inches tall, I now know that my head is about 1/4 the height of the body. And then I can adjust that to my paper. So then I come down to my paper and I make marking lines. I make the line for the bottom of the body. I measure up to where the top of the body and the head meet, and then I make another line for the top of the head. I'm going to do the same thing going across. I want to measure the width across of the penguin of the body and the head and make markings again on all 4 sides. Then I'm going to go ahead and make a box for the head that's about as tall and wide as the head is, and a box for the body that's about as tall and wide as the body is. And this is just going to help me make it really simple to get proportions. Proportions are actually really hard to just eyeball and get right on paper. It helps so much to put these boxes into place, and then you don't have to think about the proportions, you just fill in the boxes. So that's what I'm doing here. Again, I'm measuring the width for the head and the body. I'm marking it on my paper and I'm making boxes. Okay, if you want to pause and go ahead and make boxes, that would be great, and then come back. I've got more tips for doing your observational drawing. The next thing I'm going to focus on is getting the correct angles of the different contour lines of my object. Now again, this is something that sounds simple, but it can actually be really hard to do during observational drawing. The problem is that when you're doing observational drawings, you tend to look at the whole picture rather than the individual parts. It can be hard to break down without using the ruler as a guiding line. So that's what I'm doing. I take my object. Again, you don't have to pick yours up. I did that for the purposes of the video so that you could see how to do this. But you're going to hold up your ruler and you're going to close one eye again. And you're going to try to line the edge of the ruler with a line that you want to draw, say for the top of the penguin's head or the side of the penguin's head, or maybe the direction that his nose is coming down, the angle that his body or his wing is coming, the angle that his foot is at. So you find that angle and then you just take your ruler to the paper and put whatever it is that you're drawing down on paper using the same angle. Now this penguin is pretty simple. It's one of the reasons I picked him. I also picked him because he's in black and white. Some of your stuffed animals might be much more complex. You might have big floppy ears, you might have tails. So this, finding the angles with the ruler, can be really, really helpful when you're trying to draw your stuffed animals or any other type of observational drawing that you're trying to do. Those angles are really important for creating an object that looks, 1, correct, and 2, for creating perspective, that 3D look. Making the little nose on his face look like it's coming out of his face and not just flat on paper. That's what those angles do. So really take your time with this. Make sure you're using the ruler. Again, close one eye, otherwise it can get really, really confusing. Closing that one eye helps. And go ahead and continue drawing the contour lines of your penguin using the ruler. As you continue to add the details in using contour lines, remember that's all it is. It's just contour lines or outlines. You don't really want to get into the texture yet, the highlights, the shadows, adding value. Right now you're just working on the correct placement of all the different parts of what it is that you're drawing, the correct angles and the correct proportions. That's the focus. You're not trying to make it look realistic yet, but it's not going to look realistic if you don't get those 3 things right first. The placement, the proportions, and the angles. Okay, so just focus on that. Finish your contour line drawing of your object, and then you're going to move on to the next step, which is shading. That's when we're really going to start to try and create something that looks as close to realistic as possible, as close to the thing that you're looking at as possible. All right, remember, if you have questions, ask. I hope you guys are enjoying this one.